Senator Clifford-Lee.
Thank you very much, Cathaoirleach. On behalf of the Fianna Fáil group here, I would like to welcome everyone back to the Seanad, and I hope that we have a very productive session ahead of us. And I would also like to commend everyone who has worked on the restoration project. We're all delighted to be back in here. Many of us thought we wouldn't be back in here over the period that it would take to finish the works, but we're delighted to be back here. It's fantastic. Leader, I'm happy to see you're here with us and that you haven't taken an extended holiday like your colleagues to the Rugby World Cup in Japan. I'm glad that you're here for the opening of business, and it's great to see you. It's now 37 days to October 31st, and most of the media commentary and political discourse over the past few months have been about Brexit and Boris and the budget. Today's Supreme Court judgment in the UK was unanimous, and it's very striking. It has been confirmed that Westminster is meeting tomorrow, and there will be discussing the ramifications of this judgment. We all hope in this House that some common sense will prevail across the UK parties, and that they will focus on what the majority have already said about preventing a hard and disorderly Brexit on October 31st. While common sense has not been in abundance in the UK of late, it is crucial that Ireland does not become a casualty of any premature knee-jerk political reactions. There has been a sense for quite some time that Ireland has not actually been ready for a hard Brexit, and that there has been a sense of an all right on the night attitude seeping in. This needs to change rapidly. There were mixed messages last week after the Prime Minister visited Dublin. There were descriptions of positive mood music towards the start of the week, but these were dampened down completely towards the end of the week. There have been some stop-start momentum building up. Prime Minister Johnson says that he is anxious to get a deal, yet he and his government have still not produced any written papers to the EU about how they believe a single market will be protected on the island of Ireland and how border checks will be prevented. He said that he would rather die in a ditch than apply for an extension, and we still do not know the impact of the judgment this morning on parliamentary motions. These are not insignificant stumbling blocks. Jean-Claude Juncker made this clear when he met Prime Minister Johnson towards the end of last week. We all need to be very wary of not falling into the rhetoric and remain focused on protecting jobs, regions, trade in Ireland. The budget, which is due in 2 weeks' time from today, will be dominated by Brexit. Some commentators are calling it boring, as there have been no threatening red lines or demands from Fianna Fáil that could cause instability. Our sensible, pragmatic approach annoys them and some in Fine Gael. Our party agreed to a fourth budget because of Brexit and nothing else. We put the country first and foremost. We are all used to Senator Buttimer, who hits out at Fianna Fáil on a regular basis and who rarely stands up in this chamber without taking a pop at our party leader, Micheál Martin. It's an interesting tactic when he knows that he is not here to defend himself against the many spurious accusations. As Michelle Obama said some time ago, when political opponents go low, we go high, and I intend to do that. There's only so much space available on the high moral ground, and I do not intend to take that position from you. And Fianna Fáil have some priorities and demands in this budget, and the discussions are ongoing. Our priorities include prioritising sectoral protection measures in agri-food sector, tourism sector and SMEs, and so that they can be protected as much as possible from the very devastating potential impacts of Brexit. We also want to protect the poor and the vulnerable by ensuring that this is a progressive budget. It was interesting to read the Taoiseach's speech to the UN about carbon tax being introduced, and instead of a dividend being introduced, he announced a ring-fence fund. This is something that our party has been calling for a long time. We welcome this U-turn, and it's the only way of protecting against fuel poverty. Outside of the bubble of Leinster House and the bubble of Brexit, there are everyday issues that are having a negative impact on people, and these can't be ignored: housing, health and the ever-increasing cost of living. With rents at such a high level, there's a whole generation of people being locked out of the housing market. Today, we read that Kennedy Wilson boasted that they're making more money on rents in Dublin than they are in Los Angeles. This is a damning indictment of the Fine Gael government. The housing system is broken, and while there have been a lot of announcements, the government sadly lacks delivery. There is a 68% home ownership rate in Ireland, and that's the lowest since 1971. Countries such as Germany and Austria have seen significant increases in home ownerships, and while ours have fallen. This government is very good at announcements, but delivery and follow-up have not been as good as that. People are struggling to pay for childcare costs. They're struggling to get available childcare, and our transport systems are creaking. Our quality of life is suffering. Yesterday we had the bizarre situation where Éireann Road Éireann being forced to ask passengers to stagger their journey times to reduce overcrowding. This shows how out of control the public transport system has become. I've been constantly calling on the Minister for Transport in this chamber to address particularly the overcrowding issues on the Northern commuter line. Minister Ross promised 28 carriages and that they'd be refurbished and delivered, and this has not happened. There are issues around the direct provision system. We all know that it was supposed to be a temporary measure. Now, 20 years later, it hasn't been tackled, it's not sustainable, and it's completely inhumane. I've just outlined a number of challenges, and I look forward to discussing them in this chamber.
Thank you.